Hey everybody, this is the Sliders Review, and it's Women's History Month, and I'm here today to talk to you about Hetty Feather Season 4. Season 4 is extremely good, and I really enjoy it. It's one of my all-time favorite seasons. It is not as dramatic as Season 2, or knowledgeable as season 1, but it's a bit more better than season 3. It's a bit more tantalizing here and there, but not by much. One of the things that this show has been doing lately is that it's slowly just been kind of like watering down from that of season 2, because season 2 was like so dramatic, and they kind of didn't want to upset the younger viewership and stuff like that. But season 4 is like one of my all-time favorites. I think when I originally first started watching this show, I started catching a couple of season 3, then bopping around to season 4, and then I decided to go back to season 1, just watch the whole thing through, because I was watching videos on YouTube. That's how I found out about this show. And so with season 4, we now see Hetty, Gideon, and Sheila like living in the calendar house and being servants. It's much more different than that of season 1 through 3. There's no more foundling hospital. We don't get to see the foundlings anymore. Only one will appear this season, and I was very shocked to see this character. And we don't get to see none of the nurses or Mr. Cranfield or nothing like that. But instead, we do see Matron for at least like one episode. And this season, when I say it's very different, I'm not just talking about because it's in a different location. And we have a brand new, huge cast. The cast is huge. One major complaint I have about this season is that it's still called Hetty Feather. They didn't change it to Sapphire, which is her real name like the books did. But not only that, but the show doesn't really revolve around our 3 former foundlings. Gideon still has no actual solo episode and everything. They pretty much just forgot him since season 2, and he's just been bopping around here and there. Now, he gets more screen time than he did in season 3, but he doesn't have like a solo episode. He's just there to assist another character, or at least 2 other characters and stuff. Sheila is there, and she assists other characters, but we do get to see a lot of her, and she's changed so much since that of season 1 through 3. She's no longer evil and stuff, but she does get at least one kind of solo-ish episode that was really sweet and caring, and she gets a dose of her own medicine. Oddly enough, Hetty Feather, who is the main character of the show, who the show is named after, is barely in this season. It doesn't even revolve around her. She does have solo episodes, but that's only because other characters need her help and she does stuff. Nothing really happens to her this season for the most part, which is quite odd. I don't get that. She is the main character, yet she's just there in her own show. And sometimes she gets little screen time. There are at least 2 episodes, and she's barely in them. The most screen time she's had in both episodes equal to that of at least 1 minute. I'm not even joking. These are about 20 to 30, it's about 30-minute episodes, and she was literally in it for less than 30 seconds in a couple of them, and it's really odd. But she's really only there to assist 2 characters during 2 different periods in this show, and it's just peculiar. I don't understand why she doesn't have that much to do, and nothing revolves around her, to tell you the truth. And the reason for that is because this is the size of the cast this season. It is ginormous. So because we have a brand new cast that was introduced at the end of season 3 with at least a few more additional characters, there's way too many, like, plots and storylines to go around to where they gave Hetty basically nothing, because we have to get to know this new cast and like or hate them. And like I said before, I really enjoy this cast, especially that of the character Emily and stuff. Emily is like a really cool character. Ironically, Emily is kind of like the new Hetty Feather of the show. Like, she sneaks around, she disobeys people, she gets in trouble, she's smart, she's headstrong. She is literally the new Hetty Feather, where Hetty Feather is just there, her own show. And it's really strange and bizarre. Now, not every person in this picture gonna get their own solo episodes. They get stuff to do, and we do find out about them. But some people are just kind of like left in the wind and everything, which is quite a shame. But for the most part, like I said, you do get enough screen time with them to where it is somewhat like, enjoyable. But it's just so strange and just so bizarre. And not only that, but it's like Hetty isn't even like doing any writing. Like, she still writes in her journal, and she still narrates the beginning and end of every episode. But it's just weird. Like, it's named her. And then, of course, like I said before, I will talk about a little bit of season 5. I hate season 5. I do not plan on rewatching season 5. I am never gonna review it in its entirety. And if I do, it's only because I'm bored. I will review season 6 because I rather enjoy season 6, but I don't like the storyline for the most part of season 6, because it's just, hey, how can we punish Hetty some more? That's basically all it is. And it doesn't solve anything. It doesn't tie into nothing from, like, other seasons. They do try to they try to like wrap up a few storylines from season 1 through 3, but it's just kind of like, you should have done that, but you already did that. So why are you gonna wrap them up again? And so at the end of season 3, a lot of these characters were wrapped up. They're gonna re-wrap them back up again when you get to season 4, and I don't get that. And then what's so sad is that some of these characters that we get to know now will disappear by season 5. And then by season 6, there's going to be some more characters that's going to disappear, because we're going to get some new characters in season 5, and they're going to disappear by season 6. So what was the point in bringing them in season 5? Season 5 is just a bizarre season that has nothing to do with Hetty Feather. It has to do with a stupid crystal of all things. And not only that, but because season 5, the Christmas episode, which I've already reviewed the Christmas episode a long time ago. And season 6, that was around the time the pandemic started. So after season 5, and then after the musical episode, the pandemic hit. And they had to make a huge decision. Do we continue with this show, the film with masks on, or do we just end it? They decided to end it. And season 6 literally only has 3 episodes and stuff. And so that's like a real bummer. So let's get into what is this season about. And like I said before, I do enjoy this season a lot. Like, it's written very nice, because I love old-timey stuff like this. It's so interesting to see how people used to live their lives like this and everything. And it's just so fascinating to be taken out of reality and put back in this time period. And they do a nice, excellent job of it, in my opinion. And that's one of the reasons why I like this season so much. And I like this family so much. So when the family members started to disappear after a while, it's just like, oh, man. Okay, so let's start with the youngest one, Constance Calendar. She is a goober. She just loves to play. She loves to have a good time. She doesn't like doing what nobody says. She likes to fib. She likes to stick her tongue out at people she don't like. That's just how she is and stuff. And so they're always looking for a brand new babysitter for her, like a maid. But all the ones that they have for her keep oh, we don't want to work here no more because she drives us nuts. So at some point, Sheila wants to get out the kitchen and try to watch her, but it's too much for Sheila. So they get Lizzie and everything. Lizzie is a brand new character I'll get into a little bit later. And for the most part, Constance is, just there. She doesn't really have a storyline. When she meets one of the foundling boys from the earlier seasons that's supposed to be a soldier, she thinks he's a wolf boy because Jack told them the story of, the wolf boy. And she's all like, don't worry, wolf boy, I'll turn you human again. It's one of the funniest episodes, especially when she plays hide and go seek and she's in a tree. She's like, this is the best hiding spot ever. And Lizzie's all like, no, it's not. I can literally see you at the top of the tree. But she is the one who discovers Charles's little secret. And so, which causes Emily to do some investigating. That's right. It is Emily who investigates it, not so much Hetty and everything. Agnes, she is one of the maids we met at the end of season 3. And in season 3, she's a nice character. She's just very bossy because, the new foundlings are just so slow and this and that. But for the most part in season 3, she was really nice. And she was nice to begin with in season 4 until Lizzie showed up. It turns out Lizzie is her sister. And she does not want Lizzie there. And she's really rude, mean, and nasty to Lizzie, even threatening to cut her hair off if she tells anybody they're sisters. And I couldn't quite understand why she hated Lizzie so much, because Lizzie is such a nice girl. But then we later find out. See, when Lizzie first came there, she came there with their mother. And Agnes did not want her mother anywhere around her business. And because it turns out she lied about her parents to get this job, saying they were missionaries, this and that. Not that they're poor, and that her mom has multiple baby daddies and stuff, and that they're a family of little cons and pickpocketers and stuff like that. So she is extremely ashamed of her family and doesn't want nobody to know. But when she starts pissing off Lizzie, and Lizzie's all like, I'll tell if you don't tell people we're related, and this, you don't help me, and all this other stuff, because she likes to give her the nickname Aggie and everything, which Agnes does not like being called. When Agnes is found out, she is so upset, she runs back home. She literally is disgusted by her family, but she has nowhere to go and has to go back to them. Now, this show gets a slight... I'm surprised they let Sheila say what she says as a interesting innuendo. I don't remember exactly how she said it because I don't know Agnes' last name because I forgot what it is. But basically, Sheila says... there seems to be more than one husband that Agnes' mom has had. Wow. This lets you know this show got a little bit more mature since they're a bit older now. And what a family Agnes has. Let's see. She has one older sister who is biracial black. And then that's the oldest one. Then Agnes is the second child. Then it appears that Lizzie is the third child and she's biracial black. Those are the only two biracial black ones there are. And then the rest are white. You have a redheaded boy who appears to be the fourth child, and then a blonde girl who is the fifth, and then a blonde boy who looks younger to be the sixth. And then there's a new baby who just got born, which is the seventh. So her mom was busy. And yes, her family is extremely poor. And her mom's all like, look, she doesn't care what people think of her family. She loves her family. She takes care of her family. And, and she tries to tell Agnes, you should not be ashamed of us and this and that, because we always have each other back. But then Agnes tries to be all like the blonde-headed sister literally picked her pocket as soon as she came home. And so, Agnes, it takes a good while for Agnes to come around and this and that, because she knows her family loves her to death, and holding the baby in her hands really did help. So of course her and Lizzie run back to the home before she gets caught and is fired. For the most part, that's really her own storyline. After that, her and Lizzie get along very well, and it shown that she has a little bit of a crush on Gideon towards the end of the season and stuff, which upsets Sheila because Sheila starts to develop a crush on him. Lizzie is a fun new addition to the show. She cracks me up with her facial expression. She either looks really scared or she looks really pissed off, which is really funny. Now, I've already told you about the whole thing between her and Agnes, but she is the new maid who is very inexperienced and doesn't really know how to like do a lot of stuff. She is a lot younger. And since, I doubt her and Agnes have like any type of education. And so she's around 8 or so. And so she is tasked with taking care of Constance. She's constantly playing games with her, hide and go seek, tea party, this and that, right? But like I told you before, they told her a horror story, so now she's terrified of the Wolfman. They think they found the Wolfman in one of the Foundling boys, and since then she's always had like a grumpy look on her face. Like she looks pissed and everything. It was quite hilarious and everything. But other than that, she's just like a really nice, kind character, and sometimes Sheila will like brush her hair and like this and that. She will remain on the show for the remainder of the series, and the actress is now all grown up and is on a show called Invasion on Apple Plus that just now got renewed for a 3rd season. Vince. Yes, Vince is the Foundling boy who makes a one and only appearance in season 4. And he was in the military, but he decided he got scared, couldn't take it, couldn't handle it, and ran away for a full day. And somehow he made it to the Calendar's house out of like plot armor to meet Hetty and Gideon. And he tells Gideon, yo man, you gotta help me out, and everything. We're like best friends and buddies and stuff. And Gideon's all like, look man, you picked on me every day and will beat me up and stuff. Like that's what was so weird about the end of season 3 when they all shook hands and said brothers. I'm like, Vince isn't one of the lads and everything. But he's basically been eating these berries that gives people cramps, so his stomach is like all upset. And because he ran from the military, that's against the law and he can go to jail, which Jack does not want to help him out. But Gideon is beside himself and doesn't know what to do. But it's Hetty who's all like, we have to help him. He's one of us and blah, blah, blah. So she starts sneaking some food and getting caught and sneaking some more food. But then Constance get a hold of him when she plays Tea Party with him, of all things, and calls him Wolf Boy. Now, the thing about Vince is, like I said in the last review, he got his comeuppance. He made fun of Walter's father, who was in the military, got upset and had PTSD, talking about how he's a coward and stuff. And now Vince himself is a coward. I love how they wrote that because he got a dose of his own medicine and everything. And because he's a really nasty, foul-mouthed boy. Even when he's in distress right now, he's calling Jack a farm boy and looking down on him. And he's no one to look down on because he ran away from his duties and stuff. So when they find him and the Calendars and all don't find him, Mr. Calendar has decided that, you know what, I'm just gonna lie and say he got his foot stuck in like some kind of trap. Not a bear trap, but some kind of other trap. And that's why he has the sprained ankle and stuff like that. And so we don't know what happens to him afterwards because this is the last time we will ever see him, and he does not reappear in season 6 along with everybody else. Gideon sadly has no main story arc of his own once again. He barely even talks to Hetty and everything once again because they're Foundling brothers and sisters, and yet they rarely talk to each other. I don't understand the writing process of this. Now, like I said before, his story has been changed from that of the books. He was in the military, stabbed himself in the eye, and then got out of the military. So they kind of gave that to Vince, but Vince didn't stab himself in the eye. And remember, these are kids' books, and dude stabbed himself in the eye. Anyways, he has no storyline, but he becomes best friends with Jack. Jack treats him a whole lot nicer now. And he's a garden boy. And for the most part, his whole primary mission in the show is just to hang out with Edmund. He pushes him around. They do things together. At the end of season 3, he is the one who discovers Edmund because nobody is supposed to disturb him because he is in a wheelchair and the family is ashamed. They don't want nobody to see him. But he is the one who helps encourage, the rest of the family members to come around to like show him in front of people. Him and like Edmund like get in trouble by throwing dirt on one another, and it's like he's there to help make Edmund happy in the show and give him some support. So he's like a supporting character to that of Edmund and everything. And him, Jack, and Edmund are really close and really good friends and stuff. So it's nice to see he still has more lads to hang out with, even though he doesn't have his foundling lads. But it would have been nice for him to get like a solo episode. Sheila is the most changed out of everybody because she was foul when she was in season 1 and 3, always snitching on people. She's the one who calls Hetty to be away from her mother and stuff like that. And she was a really bad girl, but we always knew that Sheila always wanted to be more than just a servant. It's just something she doesn't want. She hates the idea of not being wanted in the world, and that's one of the reasons why she is the way she is, and she snitches just to get like privileges and stuff. Here, she's a much nicer character. Also, she has 2 blonde streak highlights in her hair that the show, for whatever reason, wants to show. Makes no sense because how did they do that back then? But anyways, she works primarily in the kitchen. Her and Hetty get along, and she develops a crush on Gideon. When Gideon gives her a coconut at the fair, she thinks it's like affection, and she starts to crush on him even more than what she had at the end of season 3. But he doesn't seem to be interested, and that hurts her feelings. Sheila, despite all the rotten stuff she did, I like this new version so much. It really got me to like her and feel sorry for her. Because when she's primarily in the kitchen, she has a bit of a rough time, but she's able to manage. And there is like a new cook that she gets along with somewhat fairly well. Miss Whittalk. And Miss Whittalk has been there for years, but she's getting really old and her memory is getting extremely bad. She's forgetting everything to the point where food isn't ready, the wrong items are there, and food is burning, only for Sheila to have to cover for her for months. And the reason why Sheila covered for her for months, because she would have got fired. This is something Sheila will almost never have done in like the past. And even when like the woman calls Sheila by the wrong name, it irritates her, but the name she calls her is her daughter or niece's name, one of those two. After a while, the lady is eventually fired where her sister's going to take care of her, which really upset Sheila to the point where the lady forgot her menus and we're going to give them back to the lady. But the lady told her, you know what, you keep them since you're an excellent cook and everything, because Sheila really does save the day when it comes to like a lot of their food preparations. As for the event at the fair, this is when, you really feel sad for Sheila because you have to put yourself in the mindset of how these people are. I've said before, foundlings are people who were given up by their families at birth, and a lot of their family members never came back for them. They spent their entire childhood in service while getting a little education, and then when they graduated from there, they had to go either, if you're a female, you go to the workhouse, or you become like a maid, and if you're a guy, you get put in the military. But Gideon got made into a farmer. And so Sheila, when they're at the fair, the people, you're not a high society. The clothes colors you wear are gray, black, and brown. And those are supposed to be the most worthless type colors ever to show that you are poor. And they really dressed her down. And so at the festival, they had a festival queen. Only aristocrats are able to sign up for it. But Sheila asked, Mr. Calendar, can she do it? And he was nice enough to let her do it. And while she was up there, it's kind of like a beauty pageant thing. So they pose here and there, and they have to sing a song. I think the song she sung about was about Gideon and about some boy she likes and this and that. And it was a touching, nice, sweet little song. And she just looked so nervous and scared because this one lady who's the godmother, Mr. Calendar, talking about, good Lord, they'll let anybody, like, try out for this thing, talking about Sheila because Sheila is low class. And so Mr. Calendar, being one of the judges, he decided to let her win because he knew this would be the biggest moment in her life, and she was so thrilled that she won. Sadly, however, nobody was around to see that. Like, none of, not Edmund or Emily or Hetty wasn't even there to begin with. And Gideon wasn't there because he was attending to something else, and Agnes and all of them was gone. So it made her feel bad. When she tries to talk to Gideon later on, he just kind of blows her off because he doesn't like her because how she treated Hetty back in the family house. So the flowers that she won, she just decided to throw them in a pot and just be upset for the rest of the day. And you do feel sorry for her because whoever thought you would feel sorry for Sheila Armsby and everything. Now, to give you a quick reference of what happens to her in the other seasons, by season 5, she lies pretending to be Emily to get some guy to like her. But then it turns out that she lies about having like another guy. Because of this, I think she was going to get fired, but she decided just to quit. And she ended up in the workhouse of all places. And it's not until season 6 is that when Hetty finds her at the workhouse and tells her, just beg for your own job back and get it back. And she eventually does. And the workhouse is one of the worst places you can work at. It's basically like a sweatshop and everything. Edmund is the second oldest and the heir to the Calendar fortune. Yet he's not supposed to because, it's supposed to go to the firstborn, but the firstborn is Emily, who is a girl, so she can't inherit it. He is paraplegic, and his family used to keep him confined in the room so nobody could see him because they was ashamed of his disability. I don't know if the actor is really in a wheelchair or not. I did see him wiggle his feet in one episode, but people who are paraplegic can move a certain degree of their feet. I had a friend in college who was in a wheelchair, and to my surprise, she was able to get out her chair and kind of waddle, squinting down until she got to her car and was able to drive. She couldn't move her feet the way like a person who stands upright and everything, but she was able to move in a kind of like waddle kind of way. So some people do have some mobility, so he probably has like a tiny bit and everything. And for him, he is very proper. Eventually the family does accept him and everything and allow people to see him. And one of the things is that he tells his father, we don't play like we used to. And his father was a little bit ashamed because, he had got dirty for like a family picture. He loves bugs, but loves plants even more. Him and Jack are very close. And him and Jack are always learning about flowers. And in fact, Edmund, who is educated, teaches Jack some like rudimentary like skills, and like he will have to learn in school because Jack has never had an education. It's cool to see those two get along so well because they do everything outside. And then when you add Gideon to the mix, it's even greater and everything because when he first meets Edmund, he calls him just Edmund, and Edmund lets him know straight up it is Master Edmund. And then by the 4th season, he keeps calling him Master Edmund, but then Edmund's all like, just call me Edmund, letting him know that we are friends and you're not just my servant. But when he's out in the garden, he touches a flower because like he falls on it and stuff. It actually makes him very sick and poisoned and nearly kills him. And it's Jack who has to help him by finding a book of flowers and finding like an antidote and stuff. It is kind of sad that his biggest storyline is like him nearly dying, but but like I said before, like he is throughout the show, and he's basically just like a brother, or like he helps Jack out or something like that. His father, Mr. Calendar, is pretty much just a stern man. Like he owns like I think a newspaper company, and he's a fairly nice man, but he is stubborn. He's kind of stuck in the old ways where he feels like a girl has no place being a doctor and stuff like that. And whenever he gets mad at somebody, like he gets furious mad and everything, 'cause he's like one of those uptight aristocrat, rich type people. But he does has a compassionate heart. And if you explain the situation to him, he will turn like, the other cheek and like understand like where you're coming from and try to help you out. The only problem is people get like terrified of him and don't want to like explain it to him. Jack is the garden boy. Met him in season 3. He was more grumpier in season 3, but he's a lot nicer this season. And him and Gideon become like best friends. And like I said before, like he's embarrassed because he doesn't have much of an education. And Edmund is educating him, but he's educating him with nursery rhymes and stuff like that, like when it comes to books. But Gideon is nice enough to give him a more mature book for him to read and stuff like that. And he's doing fairly well when Edmund is teaching him. At first, we didn't know much about his background, but then it turns out that he has one little brother and a mother. And the reason why he works there is to take care of his family. And his family is barely making by the wages that Jack makes. So when his mom is terminally ill, his little brother doesn't have the money to buy her medication, and so he ends up stealing from the calendar house. Jack catches him, and when Jack tries to put the valuables back, he is caught and runs out. After that, he's kind of like a fugitive. And so like when the fair comes around, he tries to talk to Gideon in privacy and wants Gideon to write a letter to Mr. Calendar. But when everybody shows up, he gets scared and he runs. At that point in time, Mrs. I think her name is Grenford. Like her grandson thought Jack stole like his wallet. And so when the constable and police and everything caught him, he had to spend time in jail. It's only with the help of Hetty and Gideon that they find out what his family is going through. So Hetty writes a letter pretending to be like some man, I forget who it is, that causes Mr. Calendar to forgive Jack. Now, Jack does develop a crush on Hetty, and he wants to go walking with her and even gives her a flower. She doesn't really want to do this, but then when she helps him and everything, she starts to come around, and by the next season, they do become somewhat like of a couple. Now, Jack does not exist in the books. In fact, she has another like lover in the books and everything. Jack's a really nice, outstanding guy, and he will help out, the Calendar family and Hetty and all them. But when Mrs. Brody threatened to get him fired so he can't take care of his mom, he let her go so she can expose Mrs. Calendar and stuff. Now, oddly enough, and here's some spoilers for the rest of for the other seasons, he's there in season 5, but for some bizarre reason, he is gone by season 6, and it said he has left. I don't understand why and how, because the writers literally set up that in order for his family to survive, he has to work at the calendar house. But he does show back up in the second episode of season 6. Mrs. Brody is a new character who works for Mrs. Grenford, and so her task is to find out what Hetty knows about Mrs. Calendar, because Mrs. Grenford feels that Hetty knows something because she's always seen those two talk together. So pretty much throughout the entire season, she becomes the new housekeeper. And she is very, very strict in everything. But she takes sympathy for that of Hetty, even letting Hetty break some rules because she's trying to get close with her. When it's time for the fair, she tells them she needs a person to help her out. So she put everybody's name in a bucket, and Hetty's name happens to come out. But Hetty's name was the only name in there. Hetty later on finds out and realizes that all the sucking up and all the kindness that Mrs. Brody is doing is so that she can find out something. Eventually, she does find out by finding a letter that Hetty tried to hide. And so she's on a crusade to expose Mrs. Calendar. But when Mrs. Greenfield is like found out, she rats out Mrs. Brody, and Mrs. Brody is begging to keep her job with Mr. Calendar, but he has had enough and he sends her out. She literally tells him that, like, if she doesn't have a good reference or anything like that, she'll be out on the street. He does not care. We have no idea what her fate is after season 4. Most likely she's homeless, works at the workhouse, or found a man to take care of her. Mrs. Greenford is the new antagonist of the show, and she is as mean as ruthless as they come. She is the godmother of Mr. Calendar. And so for some reason we know she wants Calendar Hall. She wants the whole place to herself and all the money, but we don't know why. She doesn't want none of the heirs to take over the family. She's pissed that now there's a new baby in the family. So when she knows that Edmund is the heir, the second child and everything, she is trying to put Edmund in a mental hospital of all places. But his father will not allow it and kicks her out. But eventually she comes back. So her next scheme is to have her grandson try to marry that of Emily. Her grandson is just a very snooty, rude little boy who really sucks up to that of Emily. But he doesn't believe in equal rights and opportunities, especially when it comes to that of a woman. And so, like, those two just do not click. But he is trying his extreme best. Edmund doesn't like him because of how rude he is and how he cheats at croquet. And so when the jig is up when it comes to Mrs. Calendar, his grandmother forces that of like Emily to want to marry him. But Emily overhears the conversation and wants to help out her stepmother, so she agrees to marry him. We later find out that the reason why she wants Calendar Hall is because she is in extreme debt and she needs to pay her bills. So this is why she has her grandson and everything try to marry that of Emily. But when Mrs. Calendar finds out, she tells her husband and he is going to kick her out. But he decides this is what he's going to do. See, when they find out her secret, they tried to expose her, but Charles lied and everything, said that's not his mom. So Mr. Calendar's like, look, I'll pay your bills and everything, but she ain't coming back here. And so she leaves. And like I said before, she rats out Mrs. Brody, even though it's all her plan. She does eventually show back up a couple of episodes within season 5. And after that, she stays for the remainder of the series. She's still a little evil in season 5, wanting this diamond that everybody is looking for. But eventually after that, she turns around and becomes a much nicer person. I hate when they redeem evil people. Rosamund Calendar, she has a dirty little secret again. So the whole green book she burnt, there's no a continuation of that. They just ended that storyline at season 3. She was pregnant at the last episode of season 3. About 9 to 12 months has now passed and she's ready to pop. And so she gives birth and everything. And when she does, she starts to act very weird. She starts to have delusions and talking like a crazy person about a boy named Charles and how she gave him up. Hetty overhears this. And so she's having that postpartum depression thing that most pregnant women are having. But she feels guilt for giving up her son because that's back when she was in the workhouse and this and that. And she has no idea what has happened to him. But she figures there's only one woman who knows, Matron. So she asks Hetty to write a letter. She does that, but Matron wants to meet Hetty. And so, like, eventually she tells her she has no idea what a boy is, but she really does, and writes a letter to him. Pretty much after the fourth episode, that storyline kinda ends, kinda, and kinda doesn't, because she no longer is now looking for him, and she's doing a whole lot better. She treats her stepkids like they're her own, Edmund and that of Emily. Constance is actually hers and Mr. Calendar. And she's always there for Edmund and Emily and gives Emily all kinds of advice that Emily needs because Emily is so headstrong and just wants to do whatever the world she wants to do. And no matter what she did in the past, Mr. Calendar always forgives her. Eventually, she does meet up with her son and they have a nice reconciling, but he doesn't show up past that of season 4. In season 5, she kind of bops in and out of. She's still there. She's there for the Christmas special. And I'll let you know what happens to her in season 6 when I talk about that. Charles is that Rosamund's son out of wedlock. And so he shows up pretending to be a tutor for Emily. Now, the thing about him is that when he showed up, I'm like, oh crap, here comes the drama. Like, what's he gonna do? Because you know how those storylines normally go. A child's given up for like adoption and like they're back with a vengeance. However, it's not like that at all. He's actually a very nice person, a very quiet and meek person. And he snoops around like, Calendar Hall trying to find his mother's room when Constance catches him twice. Once about to go there and the second time when he's actually in there. The first time Constance catches him, she tells everybody, but nobody believes her because she lies a lot. But this causes Emily to check his references at the college he said he went to. And when she gets the letter back, they say they don't have a Samuel, because that's the name he's going by, his middle name, but they had a Charles and stuff. And he found the letter and explained that he just doesn't like his first name. When Constance catches him a second time, once again, nobody wants to believe her. Until Sheila confirms he was in, Mrs. Calendar's room. After that, he lies and said he's with a rival news company and he was just trying to find dirt on Mr. Calendar. This causes him to leave and get fired until Mrs. Brody finds out, who he is and talks about, oh, your mom doesn't care about you. You need to expose her at the dinner party, this and that. And he's about to do that until Hetty tells him that, she has a letter for him from Mrs. Calendar, but he doesn't want to read it. But Hetty is able to convince him that his mother does indeed love him and she wishes she never gave him up. So when Mrs. Brody and Greenford, confront him and everything, he lies and said he don't know what the world they're talking about. After that, him and his mom have a heart-to-heart. They hug. I assume he would come back for season 5. He never does, and especially he never comes back for season 6 when something major happens. I don't understand why that didn't happen, but he does have 2 step siblings. He has and 3 half siblings because at the very end of this season, his mom is pregnant once again. He's a very smart, educated person who went to college and was even a tutor to that of Emily. I don't know how because, like I said, he was born out of wedlock and the matron gave him up. But she must have gave him to a good family and stuff. Before I get to Emily, I'm going to get to Hetty because, this is her show to begin with. Like I said, Hetty is barely in this show and she barely really ever does anything. She does have 3 storylines but they all revolve around things that happen with other people, and she's trying to help them. It's never anything that happens with her. For the most part, nothing bad happens to Hetty this entire season, which is a good thing because bad stuff always happens to her. But because of that, in season 5 and season 6, they really put on the drama of bad stuff happening to her. Like I said before, in the second episode, she gets a letter from Ida talking about Hetty. I have moved from London and pursued like a better job and blah, 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 and stuff like that. And Hetty is upset. So like, my mom has abandoned me again. I'm all like, why in the world did they write that after what happened in season 2 and season 3? It's like the writers just didn't care and everything. They just wanted to get Ida off the show. Other than that, she mostly just attends to her cleaning chores, always sneaking out because Mrs. Calendar want her to go and find out what happened to her son. Her first major storyline is, like I said before, trying to find Charles out, which sends her to that of Matron in the 4th episode. She is terrified of Matron because of the history they had since season 1 through 3. And even Matron is calling the shots inside the jail, telling Hetty to sit down. When Hetty doesn't do her command the first time, she tells her a second time with force, and it scares Hetty to where she sits down. They have a chat, and basically Matron's all like, oh, I don't know where he's at, blah, blah, even though she really does. And then Hetty decides she's going to conquer her fear and stand up to that of Matron, and tells her she feels sorry for her and everything, and she's scared of her no longer. Now, Hetty is the forgiving type, and she will meet Matron again in the last season. That really pissed me off, and I really hate what they did. But the writers are the way the writers are. Other than that, she's mostly just around the house, and Mrs. Brody is sucking up to her. But we don't see too much of this because, like I said, she ain't the focus of the show. When Emily wants her to, get fitted for a dress because she doesn't want to and they're the same size, Hetty does it and wears a nice, beautiful dress, but she could care less. Jack ends up having a crush on her, but she's not really interested. The next major storyline involves Jack. Like I said, after he got caught for supposedly stealing and everything, she tries to, find his innocence, which sends him to his family's house. And this is when she finds out about his ill mother. And she writes that letter to, get him out. She keeps telling everybody she wants to be a writer and she's not going to be a servant for the rest of her life, but we don't see her really writing or talking about writing. And when she knocked the camera over, and when she talks to Mr. Calendar, he tells her, thank that man for writing that letter. He has a future. He has no idea it's her, or maybe he does and just being coy. And so we find out in the 6th season, she decides to write a book about her life and everything. When it comes to this whole writing thing, that never happened in the books because she joined the circus afterwards, and then she went to go work for another people's house, not the Calendars. I do like how they try to give her a more educated, sense that, she wants to be a writer, she can write books and stuff like that. But they really didn't never explain what exactly she ever wanted to write back when she was in the Foundling Hospital and now at the Calendar's place. And I still don't understand why she's barely in the show this season. Maybe she had another project, I don't know. Now this season, her hair is more red than it's ever been. But it's mostly just the top. The bottom part is still dark, but the top is really red. Because we know the actress does not have red hair in real life. And she's never been nominated for an award. 2 guys on this show have been nominated and won, but yet she never has, and she has literally carried this show, well, at least for the first 3 seasons. Emily becomes literally the new Hetty of the show. She was first shown in season 3 towards the end. She's a very headstrong, very determined, educated young woman who wants nothing more but to be a doctor. She became one of my favorite characters on the show, and I could not believe what happened to her by season 5. And so, like, I don't know if they was ever planning to just like make a spin-off or like write the Hetty character off, but it's kind of weird how they literally try to make her the new Hetty of the show. She is a lot of the primary focus of the season. In season 3, she gets kidnapped because apparently she likes to wander off and do her own thing like she did when she was in India. But here in London, they don't do that. At least her father and stepmother won't allow that. So she steals Hetty's uniform and walks off only for her to get kidnapped and ransom off and everything. In this season, she is very determined to be a doctor. Her and her father do not always get along because he's old-fashioned. Mrs. Greenford is really old-fashioned. It's all like, just look pretty, find a husband, and you will be taken care of. You don't need to bother yourself with books and education and stuff like that. She loves to read and she has a tutor. Her tutor was secretly teaching her last season and now he's allowed to this season. Problem is, he's about to go off to college. She does not want that to happen because he wants to be in medical, but his dad wants him to go to college and do something else. But he's going to do what his father wants. And so she arranges it when she talks to his father. And now his father is not going to let him live in the dorm and pay for it. He has to live with his aunt. He is furious with that of Emily and tells her that, you know, you only think about yourself and not other people. So after talking to her stepmother and everything, she realizes what she did was wrong because she only thought about herself. Now she needs a new tutor. But before that could even happen, there's a problem. Mrs. Greenford. She tries to put her grandson onto Emily. But Emily realizes this person's a male chauvinist pig who doesn't believe in equal rights to that of women. And so she's all about equal rights and suffrage and the voters' right and like all this other stuff. And when she meets a woman who's all about that stuff, she's very fascinated and they bond instantly. Emily will stand up for herself and mouth off if need be. She loves her family just like Hetty loves her borrowed family and everything. And she will stick up for her family even if she doesn't always get along with them and stuff. And so, like, when she finds out that Mrs. Calendar is being blackmailed, she decides she's gonna marry Mrs. Greenfield's grandson just so Mrs. Calendar's secret does not give out. That is major, 'cause that's not even really her mom. But Mrs. Calendar is so kind to her, she will do anything for her. She loves her brother and will not have her brother disrespected. And like, you know, she loves to express herself. Like, she's really good at drawing and painting and stuff like that. And so when Gideon has to paint the shed, she decides, oh, you know what? I don't feel like doing what my parents want me to. I'm going to help you out and everything. And he doesn't want her to because she's like, you know, an aristocrat and everything. But she paints the shed, but she paints flowers on it. And Gideon is pissed. He's all like, look, I understand you wanted to help me out and express yourself, but you got to understand, you won't get fired because you don't work here. I'm going to get fired and everything. And she realizes once again, she's done the wrong thing. And it's kind of interesting because it's like she's so free-spirited that she only thinks about like herself constantly. So it was really cool when she stood up for Mrs. Calendar and wanted to help her out and stuff. And it was such a selfless act. And so then she gets Charles as like, you know, a tutor. Until Constance is weary of him, so she starts to look into him and everything. once he exposes himself to her, she really, not that kind of exposed, about the whole lying and stuff like that. She realizes every guy who comes into her life is always lying to her and stuff, and she hates it. She's furious that she's not going to be the heir to her father's fortune, even though she is the firstborn. But because she's not that of, like, a male, she won't get it and stuff unless she marries. And for the most part, like, she treats everybody kind, but she just has kind of this, like, whiny, stuck up, I don't want to do this kind of like personality, but in a very sophisticated kind of way, if you will. Now, what made me so pissed was that, okay, in the last episode, it's her birthday, right? And there's no talks of her going to college or this and that. They decided that they're going to write her off at the end of season 4 completely. And I mean completely. She never shows up for season 5. She never shows up for for the Christmas episode, and she never shows up for season 6. However, she is mentioned constantly throughout the rest of the series because apparently her and her dad are traveling abroad, and that's why he's absent in season 5. But other than that, it's just like they completely wrote her out. And I don't understand why. She's a good actress and she's a good character. And why try to make her the new Hetty of the show if they're just gonna be done with her at the end of season 4? This is when the show started to get odd because all these new characters they constantly bringing in, they will get rid of them by the end of like the season and stuff, with the lamest excuse. Now on to that of season 5 very briefly. I hate season 5, I hate season 5, I hate season 5. Basically it's like this. This one prince dude whose name I can't even pronounce. He is from India and he lied about the reason why he's there. The real reason is because he's looking for the Dawn Star, which is a diamond that was stolen from his family many years ago by one of the calendar ancestors and stuff. And so the entire season, that is what they're looking for. This crystal that is somewhere on the property. And he's this whiny, irritating little kid who gets on my nerves. And the actor actually won an award for his performance. Now, he is based on an actual a real person in real life. I don't know why they decided to do that for, instead of just making up their own. And so he's just this like mean, rude, bratty little boy. Also, there are new characters, Ambrose and Flo. They are a father-daughter duo, and they are con artists and everything. The dad wants to, like, just steal the fortune of the calendars and steal this little crystal diamond thing. And so he has his daughter do it with him. Eventually, she decides to turn good and rat her father out. So he is later arrested, and she is later given a job at the calendar place as a maid. Now, this is what's really odd. I believe she is there for the Christmas episode, but for whatever reason, they wrote her out in season 6. Why let her stay on the show? They were just gonna write her off. It makes no sense. Also, Hetty gets blamed for stealing the crystal diamond thing. And so she's on the run and everything because they have to punish her somehow. And like the Ambrose guy tried to burn down Calendar Hall, I think it was him. I'm not really 100% sure. But I hate season 5. I hate season 5. I hate season 5. Mrs. Calendar pops in and out of season 5. She is still pregnant at that time. Her husband is with Emily abroad. Mrs. Greenford comes back, like I said, and she tries to work with Ambrose and them to steal this little diamond because she just wants it all for herself. Other than that, season 5 is really, really stupid. And they decided, all right, after season 5, let's just drop a lot of people. Let's drop Jack. Let's drop um Flo. Let's drop somebody else. I can't remember. But when it comes to Agnes and Lizzie and Jack and Gideon and all them and Constance and Edmund, I forget what their storylines are in season 5. So season 4 is extremely good. I really enjoy that of season 4. I just wish it could have focused on Hetty. It's her show. It's named after her. Why not focus on her? I do not understand. But season 4 is just really, really like, it's smooth. There aren't that many continuity issues. It's like enjoyable and everything. It has a great cast and stuff. I just really hate when they start writing people off and they don't really explain why. Happy Women's History Month, everybody. All right, well, I'll talk to you later. Bye.